The line between meditation and daily life is an arbitrary line. And sooner or later, people who meditate realize how arbitrary that line is and become interested in how to live in daily life with a kind of integrity, a kind of intimacy, and the kind of freedom there can be in meditation. Why should it only be in meditation that we feel free? Why should it only be in meditation that you feel peaceful or happy or feel like you have a high degree of integrity? The challenge is in how you take the wonderful benefits and conditions that come with meditation and begin to live with that in your life. Not that you have to look like a zombie. Some people associate meditators with being really calm, and the unfortunate thing is that people think, you know, I'm kind of calm, so I'm, you know, not a good spokesperson for a passionate meditator. So don't use me as the last word on what it looks like to be a lifetime meditator. It's just, what we're doing here. The point is not to be, speaking of the Buddhism as a philosophy, certainly, but also in this practice here, the point is not to become somebody, but rather the point is to become free. And to become free means you actually become freer to be who you are. You become free of what's extra. And what we're most concerned about is the extras that add stuff that cause you to suffer or causes your behavior to bring suffering to others. So as you meditate with mindfulness meditation, the causes and conditions for suffering tend to shed and fall off. And what's left is not nothing. What's left is happiness, peace, and calm. What's left is greater insight and understanding and wisdom in this life that we are living. Mindfulness can exist quite well without any sort of Buddhism connotations. Mindfulness is certainly very key to the whole enterprise. And it's an interesting fact that that's the case because what's required in Buddhism is not a doctrine nor a belief, but rather an enhanced capacity to pay attention. So today what I'm going to do is I'll lay out some basics of the practice, including the very center of it. We're going to go into some breathing meditation, mindful attention to your breathing. And then plan on next week, we'll be talking about mindfulness of the body. So going back to, as it turns out, spirituality puts a tremendous importance on being an embodied being, on being connected to your body. You want to believe that if you read a lot of the books on Buddhism or meditation or mindfulness, they tend to be kind of intellectual. But if you go hang out in practice with others, you find out that the body is really important, getting into your body and being in your body. So we all can pay attention to some degree. And if you pay a little bit of attention to how you pay attention, what you'll probably discover is that you'll pay attention for a short period of time. At some point, you'll either get distracted from what you were paying attention to and go off into future thinking, past thinking, into fantasy, or if you stay connected to what you are paying attention to, you'll somehow start thinking about it. And you'll think about it in such a way that the thinking pulls you away from the experience. For example, if I'm talking and I say something brilliant or something horrible, you might start thinking about what I've said and not notice that I'm continuing to talk. Because you are retrospectively thinking about what I just said, in a sense, you got hung up with the experience. You pay attention, something happened, somehow you got hooked, got caught, got involved in that experience, so you couldn't pay careful attention to the next thing that happened in that moment. It's a very interesting phenomenon because that place where we get hung up, get distracted, get pulled away is a very important key to understanding what motivates us, what our values are, what our fears are, what our clingings are, our hooks, our buttons, everything. So one of the things we are trying to do here is learn to pay attention to seeing what complicates our attention, where we get caught, what makes it difficult. Because the place we get caught is also the place where we are going to feel stress. And as many of you know, this practice that I'm teaching here, mindfulness practice, has been adopted in many clinical settings in this country for stress reduction and pain and stress management. When people go to Kaiser Sosua El Camino Hospital, Stanford Hospital, take these mindfulness-based stress reduction classes, they don't use the B word And a lot of people who go there have no clue that the practice they are being taught comes from Buddhism. And that's good. The place we get hung up is often a very important window into understanding how we are more likely to suffer or how we are more likely to cause problems in our life. So we start paying attention, which we all have the capacity to do, but we get interested in this practice. How is it that our ability to stay calmly connected to the present moment gets somehow disrupted? People who meditate will sometimes think that the disruption is the problem. Disruption sounds like a bad word. I got disrupted. I got caught. When we do this meditation practice, we try to not judge anything as being bad or inappropriate. Rather, we try to fold everything back into the attention. In other words, to notice this, pay attention. What's going on? Notice this, notice this. I just got caught. I heard someone cough and it reminded me that my friend was sick. And I wondered if I should visit my friend in the hospital. I wonder how late it's open. And then I notice I'm trying to do this meditation here. So it's an example of getting pulled in. It was an innocent example, but it could also not be so innocent. And so what we do is, rather than saying that shouldn't have happened, I shouldn't have had that train of thoughts, what we try to do is to fold everything back into the attention. Oh, look at that. That's what a disruption is like. That's what it's like for the mind to get hooked, to get carried away. That's what it's like. That's what it's like. Do you understand that principle? And it's a really important one. Sometimes people who have been meditating for 10 years haven't learned this one yet, haven't learned that there's nothing that doesn't need to happen. There's nothing that you should say that shouldn't happen. Rather, it's one more thing to learn to pay attention to. And if you learn to pay attention well, there's a freedom to be found in attention. This is one of those things that I hope you get a key taste for, at least an intuitive idea. In paying attention, there's a way of paying attention where you get that, where you are not caught, trapped, oppressed, influenced, or driven by what's going on inside or outside of yourself. And that gives you a tremendous power to go about your life. If you have the ability not to be pushed around by your inner compulsions or the pressures from the outside. We learn this by learning how to use the attention in a new way. We begin the mindfulness meditation with paying attention to two things, our posture and our breathing, with the idea that it's really helpful to have a good stable posture, and also a posture that also expresses an attentive state. Like embodying a sense of dignity. You can be a meditator and be a couch potato. It's possible. However, your whole meditation experience is improved if you let your body be a support for your attention. So it isn't just a mental thing that you're trying to mentally attend to, but you put yourself in a posture where your body is more likely to be attentive. So I'll talk about that a little more in a moment. Then we use the breathing, and the breathing has a wonderful quality of being continuous. Pretty much we're always breathing. So there's always something to connect to. There's a rhythm to breathing. It flows in and out. It comes and goes. It's actually easier for the mind to pay careful attention to something that is changing in a very subtle and quiet way. If you fixate your eyes and don't let your eyes move very well, you can't see very well. In order for the eyes to see well, the eyes have to actually move a little bit. They're actually constantly shifting and moving. There is something really wonderful that happens when you follow the breathing that has a nice rhythm to it. You are watching, following the change that goes on with the breath. The breathing is also closely tied to our emotional life and our psychological life and our energetic life. And so much of how we live is affected by affects our breathing. For example, if you get afraid, your breathing can sometimes get constricted and tight. If you're really relaxed and happy, it gets to be more relaxed and fluid. If you're nervous about something, you might breathe faster. If you relax, you might breathe more slowly. There are all these different ways that the breathing shifts, partly to give you more or less oxygen depending on what you need. If you are attacked by a lion, you need a lot of oxygen, so the breathing knows what to do. So if you are running a lot, you are hyperventilating a little bit. As a person connects to the breathing with their attention and to follow the breath, one breath after the other. There is a reciprocal relation with our attention and the breath, and it tends to create a calming effect on us. It's not always the case, but it tends to have a calming effect. Most people who follow the breathing and get into it will find that they become much more calm and peaceful than they were before. It's very nice and helpful to become calm and peaceful, but in mindfulness meditation, we don't hold that up as the great goal to become peaceful. The goal is to pay attention. So if you get more agitated as you meditate, which sometimes happens, remember the goal is, let me pay attention to this. Let me fold this back into the meditation. Let me do mindfulness of agitation. It might be really helpful sometimes. For example, there might be something you haven't ever looked at very carefully in your life that you've been holding at a distance. And as you sit trying to relax in meditation, you lower your guard. So some of you don't want to lower your guard in meditation. You lower your guard, and when you lower your guard, this thing bubbles up. And then, oh no, now I have to look at it. And then you get agitated. But I'm meditating, I want to be calm. And then you're more agitated because you're judging yourself. Just fold it in. Oh, now I get to pay attention to what it's like to get agitated. The breath is calming, and also because it's continuous, going back and forth, it's a wonderful place to train yourself to be in the present moment. The trick for this mindfulness meditation is how to keep yourself in the present. And you will all find out pretty soon when we meditate how difficult it is to stay in the present moment. The mind has a mind of its own. It will take you away. We're trying to train the mind to stay in the present so we can offer careful attention to what is going on in the present. All the wisdom, all the insight, all the enlightenment that you need to have in your life will only be found when you are able to stay in the present. If you're not in the present, you're not going to find it. It's not going to be there. So the breath is a place you train yourself to calm down enough to settle the mind, to concentrate the mind enough so that the mind can begin to stay present in the present moment. So breath meditation has a lot of functions. It's very beneficial. And I consider it to be the foundation. And from that foundation, then we expand the attention beyond that, eventually to include all of our life. So we'll start very narrowly, just the breathing for this week. And then next week, we'll bring in the body. I'm going to talk a little bit about meditation posture. For sitting meditation, there are basically two primary postures that people tend to use. One is sitting on the floor in a so-called cross-legged position, and the other is in a chair. You're welcome to sit in either one. There are some small advantages to sitting on the floor, but it's fine to sit in a chair. In the iconography of Buddhism, they have this idea that far in the future, there's going to be another Buddha, and they have statues of this next Buddha, and he's always sitting in a chair, so it's really fine to sit in a chair. Now, we'll talk a little bit about both sitting on a chair and on a floor. The most important thing about posture is to have an alert spine. Sit in a way that your spine is alert, upright. You don't want to be so upright that you're tense, but you want to sit upright so that there's a sense of alertness, and also in such a way that you're not going to cause long-term problems. If you stoop over a lot, meditating this way, most people, especially those who have a sedentary life, will find that their back will go out at some point. It's really good to train yourself to sit with a good upright back posture for the chair and for the floor. One of the ways we do that on the floor is classically we sit on a round cushion, and it's called a Japanese zafu. And the idea is to sit on the front third of it. So you're sitting on the forward edge. So you let your pelvis tilt forward. With your pelvis forward, it helps the knees come down, and it creates a little curve in the lower part of your back. You don't want to overarch, maybe slightly more than the natural curve. A little sense of strength there in the lower back, and what you want to do is to try ideally to have both of your knees on the floor and your butt on the cushion. It's easier to get your knees down if you are elevated. If your hips are really tight, then sitting really high helps. You can get two cushions or build up a whole throne in order to get your knees down. If you can't get your knees down for any reason, then you can also prop it up with a cushion or sweater underneath your knees. And if you have that nice tripod of the 3 points, your knees and your butt, it creates a nice stable base for holding the rest of your torso upright. It's nice to have that lower center of gravity and that wide base for sitting. You don't tend to have that in a chair. That's one of the advantages of sitting this way. If you're sitting on a chair, the recommendation is that you definitely don't cross your legs. Both feet flat on the floor, ground parallel to each other. So both the soles of the feet are firmly planted on the ground, or cushion if you need the support. The trick is to not have your knees higher than your hips, because then it tends to push out the lower part of your back and you get a strain there. Ideally, your knees would be a little lower than your hips, or maybe parallel to your hips. Some people do like to have their legs out sideways because it tends to give them a wider base and more support. So you're welcome to do that as well. If you're sitting on the floor, there are some alternative ways of sitting, which are nice. One way of sitting is using a bench. There are wooden benches you can slip under your thighs and slip your legs underneath, so it's like sitting on your knees. Another way of sitting is to take a round cushion, but place it upright and put it between your ankles. Gives you a lower center of gravity. Some people can't sit cross-legged. This may work for them. Having the back straight is really important. One way to help do that, both on the floor and on the chair, is to take your hands on either side of your hips and push yourself up off the chair or cushion as hard as you can. And as you let go of your arms, let your shoulders roll back a bit. You probably find yourself sitting straighter now. Your chest will be more open, shoulders perhaps hanging a little more. That's a good, probably more erect and alert posture than you had before. If you're sitting in a chair, the recommendation is that if you can, don't use the backrest. People have all kinds of conditions in the back that require them to use a backrest, and it's fine to do that. But there is a variety of reasons for that. One is that you are more likely, when you use a backrest, to lean into it and relax too much and fall asleep. Another reason is a little more subtle. We're trying to develop a certain type of ability to be self-reliant, and there's a connection between our physical body and our emotional life. It's either to discover how to be self-reliant emotionally and psychologically if you're self-reliant physically. If you are relying on something when you are meditating, it's a small thing, a subtle thing, but it can be a little harder to discover that self-reliance you are looking for. If you need to use a backrest, what's preferred is to use the support as low down as your back will allow. So have a pillow really low so your lower back is supported and so the upper back is free, as low as you can with your back. Some people have to use the whole back, and that's fine. So sit up straight and put the hands anywhere where both hands are doing the same thing and they are comfortable. The classic meditation posture for hands is together in front of you, just below the belly button, floating, not resting on anything, but floating, with the thumb tips touching lightly. That's a classic way of doing it. Many people will do it with their hands on their knees or thighs. I usually meditate like this now. The hands pointing up or down doesn't matter. What does matter is that sometimes if you have your hands resting on your ankles all the way down, or you have your hands too far forward on your thighs or your knees, it sometimes pulls the shoulders forward, and you can actually over time create a strain. It also pulls you down. People tend to slouch more easily. So it's possible to get a cushion or towel or a sweater and put it on top of your ankles so your hands are held up higher, or simply you can pull your hands in from your knee. And it's important to have your head squarely on top of your shoulders. Where else would it be? However, it's very easy for people for their heads to pull forward, their chins to stick up, or sometimes it tips to the side. The idea is to keep it straight, lining up your ears with your shoulders. That's how it should be, not forward. Also, there's the idea that if your chin goes up, usually a sign that you are lost in thought. And if you pull your chin down a bit, it actually controls the wandering mind a little bit. So there's also this idea that it's good to tuck your chin back and down a little bit when you meditate. You can get the same effect by opening up space between your top vertebra and the skull. I actually like that open space rather than pulling down. It puts the head in the same position. I instruct people to meditate with their eyes closed. It's not necessary to have the eyes closed. Some teachers who do sometimes teach to meditate with the eyes open. And often when people are really sleepy, I'll tell them to meditate with their eyes open. I recommend the eyes closed. The mouth is kept closed. It is said that it is helpful to have the tongue resting lightly against the palate of the top of the mouth. That's the basic elements of posture. Now, we'll do a guided meditation. Sit either on your cushion or a chair. Get yourself in what feels like a stable and alert posture and hopefully feel somewhat relaxed, so there's a balance between being alert and relaxed. This balance is an important issue. Gently close your eyes. Please remember that the most basic thing we're doing is simply noticing, knowing what is happening in the present moment. It's really simple. Before you have any ideas about getting concentrated or being peaceful or making something happen, just noticing. So you might take a moment now, just notice how you are, what's going on for you, what your own experience is like, your lived experience here and now. And as you pay attention to here and now, how easy is it to stay here and now? Are you operating on any ideas that sometime something is supposed to happen, trying to accomplish something more than just notice? In order to help us settle in and get connected to the present moments, it's often helpful at the beginning of a meditation session to take a few long, slow, deep breaths. Breathing in deeply, and then as you exhale, relax in your body, letting go of whatever tension you can easily let go. Now allow your breathing to return to normal. For this mindfulness meditation, we are not making any effort at all to breathe in any special way. If you've learned yogic breathing or any other kind of special breathing techniques, we don't breathe as a technique. We just let ourselves breathe whatever way we are. Also, at the beginning, it can be helpful to briefly scan through your body to see if there are any places where you can relax some of the muscles in your body. It might be possible to soften your forehead, your eyes. It might be possible to soften your jaw. Some people find it helpful to drop their mouth open for a moment and then float their teeth back together again. Float the lips back together again. And that can loosen up the jaw a little bit. A number of people carry tension in their shoulders. Even if it's not possible to relax the shoulders, maybe there can be a softening around any tension there in your shoulders. Perhaps you are able to soften a little bit in the chest. And also, it can be helpful to relax your belly. Keep your stomach soft and your belly maybe hangs lower a little bit. Breathing in deeply. You are breathing normally. And just scanning the body and softening whatever you can that's easy to soften. And then next, see if you can get a global awareness of your body. Don't try too hard. Just whatever broad awareness of your body that you can establish, letting your attention wander around your body, kind of from the inside, feeling it, sensing it, feeling the contact of your body against your chair or cushion. Then within your body, as part of your bodily experience, become aware of how your body experiences breathing. How does your body know that you are breathing or feel that you are breathing? What happens in your body as you breathe? What moves? What changes? What shifts? Some people can feel the movement of their belly going up and down, rising and falling, or their chest rising and falling, the rib cage expanding and contracting. Some people can feel the air coming in and out of the nostrils. If you have trouble finding your breath or connecting to the experience of breathing, you can put your hand perhaps on your diaphragm or belly, and then perhaps feel the movement there. So wherever you feel you're breathing most predominantly in your body, let that be your home base. You're going to try to cultivate your ability to stay in the present moment for the experience of breathing in that place, feeling the shifts and changes, the in breath and the out breath. There might be a variety of things that might make it difficult for you to stay continuous with the breathing. Be relaxed about that. The idea is to just know what is happening. No, I'm easily distracted. I'm easily concerned about other things. Just know that. The mind so easily just wanders off in thought. The moment you notice that happens, then gently, smilingly, bring your attention back to your breathing. Take your awareness and attention and enter the experience of breathing as if it's something you can deeply trust, a good place to be. Try to notice, be alert enough to notice when you wander off in thought. Then soft and relax back to the breath. When you connect to the breathing again, stay with it. Do it with some sense of determination to hang in there with the breathing. So you can hang in there with the rhythm of many in breaths and out breaths in a row. You may have various concerns or issues that are vying for attention. See if you can let them be in the background. In the foreground, you are just tuning into the breath, being with the breath, being with the rhythm of breathing in and out, being with the physical experience of breathing. Perhaps as you do that, just being with it is a little calming or settling. Some people find it helpful to very softly in the mind label the in-breath in, the out-breath out, or as their chest or belly rises to say rising, or as it falls, say falling. Just a very quiet whisper in the mind that just encourages you to hang in there, stay present instead of getting distracted. In these last few moments, see if you can stay connected to the breath, to the breathing. Then just as it's useful to take a few minutes to settle into meditation, it's useful to take a little bit of time to come out of it. A simple way to do this is to take a few deep breaths again, feel your body as you breathe in deeply, and then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. I like to emphasize that mindfulness of breathing, breath meditation works when it doesn't work. It works in a sense if you can stay with your breath. You might say that it didn't work because I couldn't stay with my breathing. When it doesn't work, remember that the primary thing we're doing is not to stay with the breath, but to pay attention. So when it doesn't work, when you can't stay with the breath, then you're supposed to notice what it is that is making it difficult. What's going on? You are concerned about something. You're thinking about something. You are feeling something. Something is going on. You notice what that is. And if you notice what is making it difficult to be present, you are doing the practice. There are three options. Either you are present or you are not present, in which case you don't have any problem. Then the third option is that you are present enough to know what's challenging you to be present. In this practice, we don't treat that as a problem. We just say, let me notice this. If you go to a mountain stream, a very shallow, pure, clean mountain stream, it's possible that you look at the water and you don't see it moving. But if you put a stick vertically into the water and a little wake gets formed by the current, you see that in fact it's moving. You need to have a reference point to see the current moving. Same thing with the mind. It needs to have a reference point to see itself clearly, and the breathing is that reference point. And some of you will learn, and very soon will learn, that your mind is just out of control. And you are lucky if you get 2 breaths in a row. The mind is just all over. What breath? And some people are so caught up in their thoughts so easily that they didn't even hear that I gave instructions during the sitting. Or there might be strong emotions that come along or strong sensations in the body. All kinds of things might come along. But especially with the mind, the movements of the mind, the movements of feelings, some of the things you feel and think might be pretty obvious to yourself. But as you do this meditation practice, what you'll start doing is uncovering a lot of stuff about yourself that you didn't really know. One of the things, for example, that people will learn if they try to stay with the breath, try to have a reference point, they will learn how busy the mind is. People say, I didn't know the mind was so active, that my mind was wandering off so much. I didn't know my mind was caught up in so many concerns. I didn't know until I tried to have that reference point of the breath. So learning that, being attentive to that is good. It's part of the practice. That's why I say breath meditation works when it doesn't work. Isn't it great to do something you can't fail at?